Welcome to the Patterns Podcast. I'm Tom Cagley of Tom Cagley and Associates.
And I'm Ben Woznicki from Highland Software.
Ben, why don't we dive into some real content today?
Wow. I'm just looking at this ginormous slide of...
Yeah, so user stories.
Yeah, user stories. So user stories need to describe some intended value.
And that is definitely important. They can be formal, informal, Conextra format, as a, so that, those sorts of things. They can be informal. Just a description. So whatever, right. It's a combination of what works and what level of discipline you want in your organization.
Yeah, so we've seen this around for a while. Alistair Corbett in 98 used it first. You had a conversation on that.
Yeah, we'll get to history in a second. As a matter of fact, the heads, the people who put Scrum together actually view these as barnacles.
As user stories?
Yes, user stories are not part of Scrum. They are a barnacle on Scrum that makes it go slower. Gotcha. But they're a description of value, right?
That's
and
right.
That is the critical importance.
Yep, we need to be able to align around value. So we've got the 3 C's. This is from Ron Jeffries. I don't think we ever got a date on that one.
No, we didn't, but we do know that his son is the brewer at Jolly Pumpkin in Michigan.
Go. I hear beer goes well with that.
I hear beer goes good with anything, but the 3 C's, right? Card, conversation, confirmation.
That's right. So the card, a really short description of the value that we intend to deliver. The conversation, the card isn't intended to be a requirement.
Yeah.
This doesn't take the place of that. But it is a token. I use the word anchor to keep you grounded in here's what the value is that we want to deliver.
And then to fill in some of those gaps, right? The whole idea of the acceptance criteria on the card. So
right.
Again, and remember, card, 3x5 card, that's where we started.
That's right. If you can't fit it onto a 3x5, the card's too big.
Yeah,
you need a smaller card.
Well, you just go and microfiche on top of it.
Oh, that's always fun. All right. So, Tom, I hear there's this invest thing that we can use to check, regardless of the format we're using.
Absolutely. And I think that's the important part, Ben, is that it is regardless of format. Invest, independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, testable. You might get some argument over whether it's small or sizable. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. The
whole idea of being able to apply these concepts to a user story helps us understand whether or not we've actually thought the darn thing through. Because if you can't test something, then I'm pretty darn sure as a former tester once upon a time that you really don't quite understand what you're doing.
Falsifiable, you don't have scientific method.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. And then acceptance criteria. So how have you seen that used?
Again, it's a mechanism to fill in. Since the story is this small pithy thing, the acceptance criteria fill in the gaps. It captures up front what you're really thinking about doing and how you'll get done. Right.
And then, it's kind of, I don't want to say checklist, but a little bit of that. We need to cover these things. But even then, we still need a definition of done.
Yeah, and we'll come to that in one of our 3-minute things.
So.
But the idea of definition of done really is the systemic kinds of things that have to be completed so that a story is able to go into production.
That's right. Which could be like a particular type of test was performed. In an environment.
Absolutely. I have a client that Ben makes medical devices. One of their pieces of acceptance criteria or definition of done is the fact that they have to update the documentation. Because if they don't get the documentation updated, they can't take it to the correct federal group to get it approved. If they can't get it approved, they can ship it all day. They're just ever going to get paid for it.
That would be a problem. I'm pretty sure. So there's a lot of different patterns we're talking about here. There's a lot of challenges that come up. One of the ones that I've seen is user stories getting turned into specifications. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that is definitely a problem. Again, remember, use the 3 C's, right? Card, conversation, and then confirmation. Those really help you keep it, in essence, rather than a book,
right.
It keeps it into something small.
I think the other thing there is to recognize that you don't know everything in advance. And I think that's the other one, that belief that all of you need to know what all your stories are in advance. And the reality is that as you build the thing and you start to get feedback on the thing, that expands our understanding of what's actually
But we get
involved.
these stories, we get a bunch of them, and we start them, and it takes us 6 sprints to do a story.
Right.
We run into those. It doesn't fit within a sprint, therefore it becomes almost phased, or we don't get any feedback. So there are all sorts of story splitting patterns. We can point at some of those, but if that's truly the case, that you're never ever going to get to fit within a sprint, then maybe you ought not to be doing sprint-based work. You ought to be doing something more Kanban-ish or perhaps Scrum-ish.
Yeah, breaking down some of those like artificial silos around approaches can help folks in that scenario. And then here's one that I've seen, that whole, can I use these user stories for components, or I have this system and I end up with all these systems that are just talking to each other. What's going on there, Tom?
As a module in the system, I want to. That's if we're not thinking about the value this brings to actual, the system, either sometimes the systems that you're interacting with outside, but the persona that you're dealing with, then I think we've missed the point again and we're starting to write individual components, individual pieces that are just waterfalling us through the process.
That's the risk there. Yep. There's
definitely probably not installable or implementable.
All right. So that's our short take on user stories. Close this off, Tom.
So it's important. Our point of view is contextual to the many places we've been. We want to hear how you think about this. T. Cagley, at T. Cagley on Twitter, T. Cagley at tomcagley.com.
BWoz on Twitter, and Ben at benwoz.com.
And very frankly, if you want to do your own podcast or your own video, record it and put it in the feed.
There we go.
#user stories.
We look forward to hearing back from what other folks are seeing.